just a few cars, and the number of devotees had begun increasing. Prabhupada said that he had invited them to also come along and live in the country, but their reply had always been no. Prabhupada said that the more the opposition created the turmoil, the more Krishna consciousness would become famous. He also reasoned that people were reacting. Just reminded me of the days when we were doing a lot of Sankirtan. We started to get in trouble with some certain religious factions or authority people. Heat is on, you're making the ghee, then impurities come to the surface. Even in due course, sometimes these people who are inquisitive, purified by the chant. You do not understand how to face the opposing party, Srila Prabhupada explained. He was in an animated aggravated mood. He had sometimes described his own spiritual master as Sinha, lion guru, and now they saw him in a similar fighting spirit. The more opposition there will be, he said, the more we have to defend. In regard to brainwashing, said Rameshwar, they claim that our lifestyle tends to take devotee, isolate him from the world. Yes, said Prabhupada, we hate to mix with you. No gentleman tries to mix with loafers. The Sankirtan movement is moving for loafers. Right? That doesn't mean someone who eats lots of bread. Crows will not like to live with the ducks and white swans, and white swans will not like to live with crows. That is natural division. Birds of the same feather flock together. Rameshwar, they have a list of 5 or 6 conditions, and they say if all these conditions are present, then it is a suitable atmosphere for brainwashing. They say we are imposing these conditions on our members. Prabhupada, yes, we are brainwashing from bad to good. That is our business. We are washing the brain from all rascaldom. Your brain, funny Prabhupada will make his own words up. Such freedom. Your brain is filled up with all rubbish things, meat eating, illicit sex, gambling, so we're washing them. Don't you cleanse your room? Is that bad? So if you wash your room very clean, who blames you? Four-armed. According to Vedic civilization, you're actually untouchable. Prabhupada's not being mamby-pamby about this, is he? Now we have come to touch you. Therefore, therefore wash. First you must wash. According to Indian civilization, the dog is untouchable, but he's your best friend, so you're not touchable. Therefore, we have to wash your brain. Unless your brain is washed, you cannot understand Krishna. Man is known by his company. You sleep with dog, eat with dog, your best friend is dog. So what are you? You must be washed, scrubbed. Rameshwar, but this is their argument, that the standard in America is that you become learned in different fields, science, music, art, and literature. This standard of culture and education is coming from the idea of the Renaissance in Europe, but in our Hare Krishna movement, we are isolating ourselves from these things and simply reading one set of literature, Krishna. Prabhupada, this other is not culture. As soon as you change, that means it is not culture. It is manodharma, mental concoction. Yes, we want to stop your nonsense. That is our mission. Those who are intelligent, they have taken, and you also take. Rameshwar, they say, just see, Prabhupada's saying, if you're intelligent, you'll take this. If you don't take it, you're not very intelligent. So they're left with a choice. Am I intelligent or am I going to remain a Dumbo? Rameshwar, they say that if we claim our members are gentlemen, then why is it that they go to the airport and bother so many people? Prabhupada, they're not bothering, they're educating. When a thief is advised, kindly do not become a thief, he takes it as a botheration. But it is good advice. Rameshwar, they say it is invasion of privacy. Every man has a right to think the way he wants. Prabhupada, yes, therefore I've got the right to think like this and to sell books. Have you ever had anyone telling you when you're on the street, why are you imposing your beliefs on somebody? You ever had that one? And you ask them, I came across this before, so you ask them, so you think we shouldn't actually impose our beliefs on someone? Yeah, so why are you speaking to me? You're imposing your beliefs on me. So if you really believe what you're saying, you should just shut up. Practice what you preach, which is don't preach. And let me practice what I preach. So if I do not want to hear your philosophy, why do you impose it? It is not imposing, it is good philosophy. We're canvassing, take it, you will be benefited. And they are being benefited. Those who are reading, they are being benefited. And why are you advertising big signboards? Please come and purchase. Why are you imposing your so-called goodness on us? Why are you doing? So Prabhupada's saying, why are they imposing, with their advertisements for sense gratification? Back and forth the battle went hour after hour, Rameshwar unleashing all the arguments against the Krishna conscious movement, and Srila Prabhupada defeating them. Prabhupada called the arguments childish and foolish, and he strongly criticized the materialistic demeanor from which they sprang. By Shastra and logic, he proved that the non-devotee has no good qualities and is less than an animal because of his lack of God consciousness. Such a person, he said, was in no position to criticize, and his criticisms only showed ignorance of the real purpose of human life. Okay, we'll leave the rest till tomorrow. Srila Prabhupada ki. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 6, Chapter 18, entitled Ditthi Vows to Kill King Indra. Text number 44 and 45, isn't it? Okay, I'll do the first one myself and then we can do the second one together. Iti sanchinta bhagavan maricha kuru nandana uvacha kinchit kupita atmanam chavigar haryam. Sri Sukadeva Goswami said, Kashyapa Muni, thinking in this way, became somewhat angry. Condemning himself, O Maharaj Parikshit, descendant of Kuru, he spoke to Diti as follows. Okay, we'll do this together. Sri Kashyapa Uvacha Putraste Bhavita Badre Indraha Deva Bandava Samvatsaram Vratam Idam Yad Yanjo Darayishyasi. Shri Kashyapa Uvacha Putraste Bhavita Badre Indraha Deva Bandava Samvatsaram Vratam Idam Yadyagyo Darayishyasi. Shri Kashyapa Uvacha Putraste Bhavita Badre Indraha Deva Bandava Samvatsaram Vratam Idam Yadyagyo Darayishyasi. Let's chant. Cheek. Or follower of Indra. Adeva Bandava, friend of the demons, or Deva Bandava, friend of the demigods. Samvatsaram, for a year. Vratam, vow. Idam, this. Yadi, if. Agya, properly. Darayishyasi, you will execute. Translation. Kashyapa Muni said, my dear gentle wife, if you follow my instructions regarding this vow for at least 1 year, you will surely get a son who will be able to kill Indra. However, if you deviate from this vow of following the Vaishnava principles, you will get a son who will be favorable to Indra. Please repeat. Kashyapa Muni said, my dear gentle wife, if you follow my instructions regarding this vow for at least 1 year, you will surely get a son who will be able to kill Indra. However, if you deviate from this vow of following the Vaishnava principles, you will get a son who will be favorable to Indra. Srila Prabhupada's purport. The word Indraha refers to an asura who is always eager to kill Indra. An enemy of Indra is naturally a friend to the asuras, but the word Indraha also refers to one who follows Indra or who is obedient to him. When one becomes a devotee of Indra, he is certainly a friend to the demigods. Thus the words Indraha Deva Bandava are equivocal, for they say your son will kill Indra, but he will be very friendly to the demigods. If a person actually became a friend of the demigods, he certainly would not be able to kill King Indra. Om Gyanatmanandasya Gyananjana Salakaya Chakshurin Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Mukam Karoti Vachalam Pangam Lagate Girim Yatkripa Tamaham Vande Shri Girim Dinataranam Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shiva Sati Ghoda Bhaktavrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Kashyapa Muni said, my dear gentle wife, I shall do both verses together. Shri Sukadeva Goswami said, Kashyapa Muni, thinking this way, became somewhat angry, condemning himself. O Maharaj Parikshit, descendant of Kuru, he spoke to Diti as follows. Kashyapa Muni said, my dear gentle wife, if you follow my instructions regarding this vow for at least 1 year, we will surely get a son who will be able to kill Indra. However, if you deviate from this vow of following the Vaishnava principles, you will get a son who will be favorable to Indra. Sounds a bit like heads I win, tails you lose. Did you ever do that when you were a kid? You're playing it, tossing the coin. Okay, which one is it? Heads I win, tails you lose. So whatever way she goes here, then she's going to get benefited, because either she'll follow the strict vows of Vaishnava behavior for 1 full year, which means her heart will be purified and she'll no longer want to have a son who will kill Indra. And if she doesn't, then he's saying, then you're going to have a son who will be friends to the demigods. So she doesn't want that. So this is to encourage her to strictly follow the Vaishnava principles. So just see how clever these Kashyapa Muni is. That he's angry with himself because he's in this position where his wife wants to do something which is something which he certainly doesn't approve of. But rather than just saying, no, you're not getting it, then he was very intelligent. And he's going to use her determination. So you've heard this thorn, you can use the saying, you can use a thorn to pluck a thorn. So sometimes if you're doing Govardhan Parikram, you may get a big thorn stuck in your foot, and they're really strong, long thorns, and you can use a similar type thorn to pluck it out. Just like sometimes you get a splinter and you use a needle or something, right? So here, Kashyapa Muni is using her determination to benefit her. And this is also the principle of Yukta Vairagya, which we engage. We have so much desire, we have so much plans, and we have so much energy, etc. But if we use these things in Krishna's service, then it becomes to our benefit. If we don't, then those, especially in our youth, those youthful desires will take us away from Krishna. But if we spend our energy in things like bringing down the ceiling in kirtan, and going on the street and having, instead of going on the street on a Saturday night and fighting with people outside the pub, then we're arguing with them philosophically on the streets. So we're engaging our different propensities, and we come away feeling victorious. Because as long as we're reading Prabhupada's books and representing Prabhupada, as we read in the Prabhupada Lilamrita there, that Prabhupada was never defeated. If you listen to Prabhupada's morning walks and his room conversations, and where he's interacting with the public or interacting with the devotees, playing the devil's advocate, then you see that Prabhupada immediately always rises to the occasion. Sometimes very strong, sometimes very witty, sometimes very clever. Like, I often quote this one lecture Prabhupada gave in 26 2nd Avenue, with this boy at the end of class, typical hippie. You can hear by the way he's speaking, he's kind of drawling out a bit. So anyway, he says, so Prabhupada says, yeah, you have a question? He says, well, I feel that no one is, I don't have to bow down to anybody, and no one should bow down to me, and we're all more or less equal. Prabhupada says, very good, you've diagnosed your own disease. So first he compliments him, and then he tells him, there's something wrong with what you're saying. So rather than just going in, you're talking nonsense, going a head-on collision with him, he says, very good, you've diagnosed your own disease. He compliments him. And then, of course, it's hard for the man to argue back when he's just been complimented on his own self-analysis, which he didn't realize he was doing. So we can learn, especially if you're in the front line, to study Srila Prabhupada and other devotees who are experiencing that, so we don't find ourselves getting defeated. Now, have you ever found yourself up against somebody in the street and you didn't know the answer to what they were saying, and you felt like somewhat disempowered? So then what do? You go back and you discuss with other devotees, and then you come up with, okay, next time I meet someone like that, or if I see him again, then I'll say, by the way, what you were saying there. And then, so this is good, we can keep a track on these things so that we don't just leave it to chance. Don't just think that we can be spontaneous. We have to learn how we can actually present this in such a way. In the Prabhupada Lilamrita series, you see there's one full book dedicated to lifetime in preparation. So in our brahmachari years, we're preparing for a lifetime in Krishna consciousness. That means learning proper pronunciation and meaning of all the prayers that we do every day. Before we came to Krunabhavan, we were staying in a motorhome caravan in east of Edinburgh. And so I was probably about 22 at the time. So I'd been in the movement a couple of years, but I realised that actually, if I'm going to stay here for the rest of my life, I should learn how to sing. Actually learn the pronunciation and meaning of things. So, because I thought, I've seen some older devotees, no offence against them, because they learned the prayers when they had no songbooks, so they made up their own versions of what they thought it was. So it's quite interesting things like when they do the Govindam prayers, instead of Ananda Chinmaya Sadhu Jwala, and the stars in my eyes are blue. And don't be a vegetable, Haribo, Haribo. So, of course, they were all sincere and whatever, they may have said the words wrong, but I'm sure the devotion was accepted, just like, was it Daruka was offering the banana skin to Krishna, because he was so ecstatic, he was throwing a banana away and offering the peel, and Krishna was eating it because he accepted the devotion. So this is Krishna's mercy. Even Putana came with poison to kill Krishna, and he said, "Oh, here comes my mother, let me accept this service." He's always in the mood to benefit the devotees. So even if we make some mistake, that's not the big problem. But if we're planning to spend a life in Krishna consciousness, then we should learn how to do things right. Take the time to do it right, rather than, I don't know if you ever met a devotee called Danavir Maharaj. Did he ever come to Wales? Maybe you've met him. He's a wonderful devotee, Prabhupada disciple. And he said that Krishna consciousness works, but not sloppy Krishna consciousness. So if we're sloppy about it, then the results will be sloppy. So that requires, as Satyananda Maharaj says, we have to put in effort, and then after some time, then we become purified. And we can't say, okay, 7 years, 59 days, 3 hours from now, then I should be a pure devotee, otherwise I'm wasting my time. We have to keep on I'm not going to put the effort in, and after 3 more years, that's it. We have to keep on putting effort in until it's not required, but still we put the effort in. So it's not that our desire is to become spontaneous so we can just laze about. We become spontaneous so that we're spontaneously attracted to doing devotional service. So sadhana in the beginning means it's the means by which we attain something. That's one definition. And so sometimes we have to do things we don't want to do. And sometimes we don't get to do things we want to do. So this is Prabhupada calls austerity. And when we are undertaking some austerity and some difficulty for the purpose of a higher cause, the higher cause means Krishna's cause, not our cause. Our cause means what? Flashy cars, girlfriends or boyfriends, whatever your way happens to be, and nice house, job that gives you money, holidays, intoxication, whatever. This is our way. But Krishna's cause, as that everybody, if they take to chanting of Hare Krishna, then they're going back to Godhead. And we're going to go back, we're going to reserve our seat firmly by trying to get others to do this. So, of course, Lord Chaitanya could have spread it all over the world himself. He didn't have to leave this world at the age of 48. He could have stayed for as long as he likes. Nobody's going to evict him. He's the Supreme Personality of Godhead. It's not like Yamaraj can come along and say, okay, your time's up. So he could have stayed here, did it all himself, but he wants us to get the credit and he wants us to get the benefit. So we're taking part in Lord Chaitanya's prophecy, which means we're taking part in Lord Chaitanya's pastimes. Have you ever heard or read Lord Chaitanya's pastimes? You think, oh, that'd be great. Be, floating around in an ocean of ecstasy at Rath Yatra in Puri with thousands of devotees. And you read the description of Lord Chaitanya's pastimes, but actually you're in them. We may not realize it just now, but we're in them. Lord Chaitanya says this holy name is going to be spread out of town and village, and we're doing that. So that means you're in his pastimes. You're part of his entourage. And therefore, we become very dear to the Lord Krishna Priya, or Gaura Priya, and particularly Lord Nityananda. If you're familiar with this song, Manashiksha, Nitai Pada Kamala, Koti Chandra Shushitala, Jechaya Jagata Jurai. So Nitai Pada Kamala, the lotus feet Lord Nityananda, Koti Chandra Shushitala is Koti Chandra, unlimited millions of moons. Jai Chayai Jagata Jurai. Jagat, universe, in Chai means shelter or shade. So Lord Nityananda is giving shelter to all the living entities. Bhaja Goranga, Kaha Goranga, Laha Goranga, Namare, Jejana, Goranga, Bhaji, Se Amara Pranare. Lord Nityananda says that one who worships Lord Chaitanya, who chants the name of Chaitanya, then he becomes my life and soul, and I make all facilities for him to go to Krishna consciousness. Also in Manashiksha, Lord Nityananda says, Heno nitai bini bai Radha Krishna paiti nai. That if we do not have a relationship, I think it's Narottam Das Thakur says, if we do not have a relationship with Lord Nityananda, we cannot have a relationship with Radha and Krishna. So on the affirmative, if we have a relationship with Lord Nityananda, then we are paving the way for a relationship with the divine couple. And that relationship with Lord Nityananda is that we encourage people to chant Gauranga and Hare Krishna. So just as we chant Panchatattva Mahamantra, Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya, Prabhu Nityananda, Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shiva Sadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda, before we chant the Mahamantra, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. We do that for purification, so we can free ourselves from any offences or potential offences. We chant Panchatattva Mahamantra before we chant Hare Krishna. So simply asking people to say Gauranga, we're trying to qualify them so that they can come to the point of purifying themselves to chant Hare Krishna. Not that we're substituting Gauranga for Hare Krishna. But it's interesting because when Srila Prabhupada arrived on Boston Harbor, he wrote a song. What was it called? Yeah. And then there, he says that prayer, he says a few things, and he says the holy name of Gauranga will be spread every town and village, doesn't he? He says Gauranga. So, of course, I'm not just advocating the Gauranga campaign, but we also, as a Sankirtan devotee, then we found that when we introduced the chant of Gauranga to the public, then so much trouble we used to get, it disappeared, it diminished. And then someone opposed the Gauranga campaign, and we stopped it for a while. And then it started creeping back in, and then we started it, and it became friendly again. And so many people who were unfavourable. And now even we haven't done it for years, basically, but still people are chanting Gauranga, just like we have this centre in Glasgow called Om Sweet Om. And as we were unloading the prasadam and instruments, then there was this pub just round the corner from where our place is, and the guy was outside smoking a cigarette, and he started shouting Gauranga at us all. So it's just one of these things that people are getting purified. And even we'd heard people addressing each other and referring as a greeting. They would be instead of saying Haya, or they'd say Gauranga. And I remember being in Sanktan once in Paisley, and I heard someone say Gauranga, and I turned around and I thought, oh, who's that talking to me? But they were talking to themselves. They didn't even know I was there. So understanding, and to be back to the point, was that the Lord is the well-wisher of everybody. And Srila Prabhupada and the Parampara are also, as Prabhupada used to sign, your ever well-wisher. So we're trying to represent them and follow in their footsteps, and we should always try to be a well-wisher. And we see, as we're reading from Srila Prabhupada Lilamrita, that even those people were being rascals or demons or whatever you want to call them, Prabhupada wasn't writing them off. He was still trying to benefit them somehow. This is the devotee's mood of compassion. So sometimes we don't feel so compassionate, we feel like we need a bit of compassion. Where sometimes we're on the street or doing our service, whatever it happens to be, and we're thinking, well, I joined this Hare Krishna movement because I thought it was going to be free from misery, but I'm still getting miseries coming from my body, the mind, other living entities, natural phenomena. So sometimes that happens, isn't it? You think, oh, I thought this was supposed to be blissful. But it is. Sometimes there's just a little dark, just like the clouds in the sky. Sometimes they come along, but they don't stay, they move on. And the clear sky is always there. And just The clouds are just temporarily occupying the sky for a little while. But if you just wait, they'll disappear. Just like in Scotland just now, it's a little sunny, but don't worry. In a few minutes, it will be gloomy again, and then it will be sunny again. So this Matra Sparshas to Kontiya verse, you can learn very quickly in the British Isles. I know Wales also, it's just, it's a bit like that. Just when you think there's not going to be a summer, we haven't seen the blue sky for the last month, and then just when you're about to give up hope, then it pops out and you're like, oh, there's the sun. And then everybody thinks, what's this object in the sky? Is it a UFO? No, it's the sun, you remember? I remember when I was a little lad, we used to see the sun. So, of course, we're exaggerating. But the Krishna consciousness like that, sometimes it seems like, oh, it's so tough, but you just keep going, and then it just goes away. That difficulty goes. You're purifying yourself. You're getting purified of some anarthas. So we should never give up. It's just like if you're ever polishing the deity's paraphernalia, the silver or the brass, then you're polishing, you think, oh, this is just so much effort, doesn't seem to be doing much, but you just keep on doing it. And you might not see it, but someone else comes along and say, oh, that's looking nice. And because gradually you're not seeing the transformation, but others are seeing it. And you'll see it in others too. You've probably recognized it in others if you've seen someone who's new come along and you think, okay, look what the cat dragged in here. Wonder how long this one's going to last. Let's see if they get in the fire. So you get them in the fire of Sankirtan, you get them in the fire of devotional service, Kirtan, etc., and of course Prasad. And within a short period of time, just naturally they start to blossom. If you look at a picture of yourself like a little while back and look at yourself now, you think, I remember once I was on the street in Edinburgh on Sankirtan and one guy came up and said, I thought you guys were supposed to chant and be happy. You don't look very happy. I said, you should have seen me before I joined. This is a big improvement. And that is the proof of the pudding, that when we take to Krishna consciousness and we've got nothing but we're happy, then this just becomes a bewilderment for the non-devotees. And just like in the Leelamrita, we were seeing that these materialists, they didn't want to take part, but as soon as they see the devotees happy and successful, then they become envious. And you know the sour grapes philosophy? Everybody knows that. Anybody doesn't know? Okay, I'll just tell a very short story. So there's a jackal in the forest, and there's a vine with some grapes hanging. It's quite high up, so he's jumping up trying to get the grapes. He keeps jumping and jumping. Finally, he gives up. He says, anyway, the grapes are sour, and he just goes off. So because he couldn't achieve it, he says, they're not worth having. So similarly, sometimes envious people, they cannot make the endeavor to take to Krishna consciousness and obtain what is their rightful inheritance as well. But so rather than saying, oh, well, that's nice, those Hare Krishna people are so nice, I wish I could be like them. They just say, oh, those guys are just brainwashed. And Prabhupada says, yes, very good. Thank you for the compliment. We have washed their brains. But even in Krishna consciousness, Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita that even if one is unable to follow this path, then if they're not against it, if they're favorable towards it, then ultimately they will attain the same destination. So this is a Gyata Sukriti, that just by being friendly, if you hear Prabhupada's morning walks, one occasion, sometimes you'll hear Prabhupada saying Hare Krishna, or someone says good morning to Prabhupada, and he'll say his devotional service has begun, because they're friendly to a devotee. So therefore, that's also up to us to not make people inimical towards devotees, not make them inimical towards the movement. And you may have experienced yourself, or you may experience somewhere, that sometimes people, they can be aggressive or not very welcoming to us. But sometimes these people, they do change around. I used to do Sankirtan near Edinburgh Castle, which is a good spot if you're ever in Edinburgh. Then you're not allowed to go. I'm joking. Then, and there was one guy who used to do, this Braveheart, William Wallace pastime. So he'd dress up as Braveheart, and he would go and like scare all the tourists. It was just an act he was putting on, but he used to be quite nasty towards us. And then one time he kind of tried to ramp up to the next level, and I just kind of stood there. I didn't really get affected by him. Just thinking, well, what are you going to do? You know, in the middle of a busy street, you're not going to chop my head off with your sword, are you? I was thinking, you know, it's about time you stopped thinking you were William Wallace here and you're just putting on an act. Anyway, he went away and then he came back and he apologised. And I says, well, what's wrong? And he actually let me know that the reason why he was kind of so angry and frustrated was that his small son had been going through some really difficult health situation, life or death, and his mind was preoccupied. He was suffering so much. So then, and I said, "Oh, that's okay." I said, "I'm sorry to hear about your son, etc." So, because if the devotees are not bearing the enmity toward them that they bear towards us, then it just takes a little arrangement by Krishna, and they become our friends. So then, he became the protector of the devotees. He says, "Okay, if anybody gives you any trouble, just come and see me. I'll sort them out." So, of course, these arrangements can be there by Krishna's mercy, and then, you know, practically every day after that, he would take some prasadam, and he would say the holy names, and he'd give him, after making, if he had a good day on the street busking, his Braveheart thing, he'd come and give some donation. Of course, not everybody does. Some people are just out and out demoniac, and we don't necessarily have any control, but still we have to learn to tolerate. And as I'm sure you find yourself, you've got plenty of opportunity to learn to tolerate. But especially we have to tolerate each other because we're all in the same boat, you know, and it's not, if we have some disagreement, then Prabhupada says that there shouldn't be contention. There can be disagreement amongst the devotees, but there shouldn't be contention. You know, we shouldn't start creating camps of enemies. Prabhupada wasn't in favour of that, and Krishna doesn't like to see the devotees fighting. You know, it breaks his heart to see that. And meanwhile, the fallen souls are out there, rotting in material existence, waiting on Lord Chaitanya's Sankirtan army coming to deliver them. And we're back at the temple saying, "I didn't like prasadam today. You know, there's too much salt," and someone says, "Oh, there wasn't enough salt in it." So you can never please everybody all the time, or we're complaining about something or other. So we should stop this and just get into the Krishna conscious movement. You know, whatever things are petty differences, we're all coming from different backgrounds, so we can see if it's materialistic, then there'll be differences. Just like here in Srimad, we had two devotees who were extreme polar opposites. One was the epitome of the proletariat. His father was a union leader, so much so he got a knighthood for his work with the unions, which seemed a bit contradictory that the establishment would give an honour to someone who's resisting the establishment. And then the other devotee he was traveling with was a public schoolboy. And they were traveling together in the motorhome for many years, and they were both amazing Sankirtan devotees. And it was only because Krishna consciousness was in the center, at least most of the time, that they were able to continue to do some astounding service for many years. And still, one of them is, both of them are doing service, and one of them is still here doing service. So don't let material differences get in the way, because material differences are only a temporary designation. It's only related to our conditioning, which is a temporary thing. And if we keep the heat on when we're making ghee, you get butter, you put it in a pan, you put it on the heat, and then when the heat, first of all, melts the butter, and then it starts to separate the solids or the impurities from the pure butter ghee. And sometimes when those impurities come out, you think, "Oh, I don't like the look of that, all that foamy, nasty stuff." So you have to take it out. So the suitable practice and detachment, the suitable practice is keeping the heat on, which means the sadhana, regulated devotional service. And detachment means that we have to begin to recognize what is not us, what is, for self-realization, we also have to realize what is not us. The pravriti and nivriti, what is the acceptable and what is to be rejected. Anyabhilasita shunyam gana Anya Bila Sita Sunyam Gyana Kamajanavitam Anakuyena Krishna Nushalanam Bhakti Uttama. So pure devotional service is that which is performed favourably. So sometimes we're favourable to devotional service, sometimes we're not. Sometimes we do it as a matter of duty. Sometimes we even begrudge doing it. Anyone ever experienced that? Doing it, but I don't want to do it. And you're just asking me to do this because you don't like me. So the mind can come up with things, but don't worry about that. Just do it. This, is it Nike? Say, just do it. Prabhupada was saying it before Nike said it. So just see, even by Prabhupada's words, then someone becomes successful materially. So Prabhupada said that we should aspire to become equally enthusiastic about any service we're doing, because it's not, it's prescribed duty. We have a right to perform our prescribed duty, but we're not entitled to the fruits. So if the spiritual master says, go on Sankirtan, and you say, I want to wash the pots, then the duty is to go on Sankirtan. Or if he says, wash the pots, and you say, I want to go on Sankirtan, the duty is to wash the pots. You might be washing the pots because you're getting puffed up thinking, I'm such a great Sankirtan devotee, look at me, top of the Sankirtan score every day. And then he says, okay, you can do everybody's laundry today. So spiritual master is giving instructions, sometimes for our benefit, which we can't see. So to become equally enthusiastic about any service given means we have to become detached from the result. Even if someone gives a service, you think, I don't know the first thing about this. I haven't got a Scooby-Doo. And then just like one disciple of Prabhupada, Jadu Rani, she couldn't paint. If you look at some of the early pictures, some of the paintings looks like, something from primary school. But then she took it seriously. Prabhupada told her to paint, so she learned and she's become one of the best artists in ISKCON. So just by the order of the spiritual master, and then the potency to fulfill it comes. We just have to have faith in that order. Just like there was one devotee in Russia, for many years he would go out in Sankirtan because he was given that instruction, and he was struggling, but he would do one book a day. He would always at least do one book a day. Not that he would do one book a day in the first 10 minutes and then disappear back to scoff all the Mahaprasadam for the rest of the day. But he'd go out all day, trying all day. So after many years, it clicked for him, and then he just started doing like 100 books a day every day. So Krishna is the ability. When we think we're the ability, then sometimes Krishna will allow us to be the ability because we need that purification, but sometimes he won't allow us to because we need that purification. So it's up to him. So very cleverly, Kashyapa Muni is also engaging his wife, just like the spiritual master. He cleverly engages the disciple for his own benefit. So he's saying to her, if you follow the strict regulations of Vaishnava behavior, then you will get a son who's able to kill Indra. He didn't say who will kill, he said he's able to kill. Quite diplomatic. And he said, if you don't, then you'll get a son who'll be a friend of the demigods. So it seemed like either way, she was going to win. It was a win-win situation. She was either going to become a very good devotee on account of this and give up her revenge, or if she couldn't hack it, then she was going to get a son who would not fulfill her desire. And this was impetus for her to determinedly Ekeha Kurunandana, single-pointedly follow the way of Vaishnava behavior. So as with all of us, then we have to be very vigilant to keep Maya away. And keeping good association is very important. Asat Sangha Tyag, just like we were reading also in Prabhupada Lilamrita, that we don't associate with the non-devotees. And he says, well, why would we? They can come and take association. So when we associate by going on the street, we're not taking their association, we're giving it. But of course, we're not giving it in a sense of, I'm the king of the castle, you're a dirty wee rascal. Then we're not giving association in the sense that we're condescending to them, but in the mood of, There go I, but by the grace of Krishna. If it wasn't for Guru and Krishna, I would also be out there going to McDonald's and stumbling about the street, rubber-legged on a Saturday night, or go down the street with, 25-year-old with a missus and 3 kids and a dead-end job. That would be us too, wouldn't it? Or getting caught up in a mortgage, this, that, and the next thing. So who knows? Or maybe we'd become famous in the material world for a little while, and then after some time you're forgotten about. Or we may become wealthy. We may excel in some material opulence, but ultimately it's temporary. Bhogeshwaram prasaktanam tayaparata chetasam. So this Bhoga and Aishwarya, sense gratification and material opulence, then one who's too attached to these, a resolute determination to perform devotional service doesn't take place. So conversely, if one is resolute in purpose, then Bhoga, sense enjoyment, and Aishwarya, material opulence, won't distract us. Maybe some of you know Atmanivednam Swami from the manor, Atmanivednam Swami. No, you don't see him that often. I think he travels a lot, and he doesn't. He's not so prominent, but he's a very wise and steady devotee. So one time he was in Scotland, and he was given a class, and after the class he had any questions, and I can't remember exactly the question, but there was something to the effect of, well, maybe next life. So the conversation often went on, and this aspiring devotee says, well, maybe next life I'll get a better opportunity. And Atmanivedam Swami said, what better opportunity could you have more than you have now? You've got prasadam now. You're going to have, you got kirtan, you got association, you got the books, you got service, you got the deities, you got charnamrita. You count everything from the moment you get up to the moment you take rest. Our whole day is filled with so much auspiciousness that, the only way you're not going back to go home to Godhead is if you tell the Vishnu Dutas, where to go, because everything is there, which is like practically it's impossible not to go back home to Godhead, unless we're like so determined to try to defy Krishna's mercy. So what is this question of putting it off to next life where you might get a better situation? There's no better situation. It might be a worse situation. It may be more difficult. The way Kali Yuga is going, things aren't generally going to get better. Generally things degenerate, they deteriorate. So this is the best opportunity we've had, and who knows how many millions of births. It's the best opportunity we're going to have. We're here for a reason. I don't know if Mangalananda visited you when he was in Wales. Did you see Prabhupada disciple Mangalananda? He sings some nice songs. So there's one song called, I think it's called Going Back to Godhead. He says, through the kingdom of all spaces, you have risen, spirit soul. Don't turn back now, hear the sages. It is time to reach the goal. We're going back to Godhead. Yes, we're going home. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. So such an intelligent devotee. And personally speaking, I owe him quite a debt because that album of his back in the 70s tuned me into Krishna consciousness. So we're on the threshold of eternal life full of bliss and knowledge. Don't turn back from that. Whatever difficulties come, they will pass. Just like George Harrison used to sing, all things must pass, all things will pass. So that is the fact of the matter. Everything which was a difficulty before passed, didn't it? And when you're going through it, you think, oh, this is the most difficult difficulty. But then it will pass as well. Because there's two causes of reaction. And one is the immediate cause, like the immediate cause may be that someone says or does something to you which hurts you or causes you some problem. But the remote cause is actually what we did, that reaction came towards us. So I remember one devotee giving a class on forgiveness, and they said, ultimately, what is there to forgive? Because you only get what was due you anyway. If you blame someone else, Shastra says don't try to correct reverses, because you just become entangled in the complexities of karma, which we can't really understand or fathom out. But the best path of action for us is always just to take shelter in the holy name, association of devotees, service, etc. And basically be the well-wisher of others, and being such a well-wisher, at least trying to play that part, and ultimately we may be faking it until we make it, but we will make it if we keep engaging in that. Not necessarily faking it, but we're trying to practice. We're practicing it. And practice makes perfect. In due course, it'll become more and more understandable. Just like when you read Bhagavad Gita now, if you read it last year or the year before, your understanding is deeper and deeper because you're cleaning the mind, cleaning the heart, Cheto Darpana Marjanam. And just like sometimes you're polishing the deity's copper or brass and it looks clean, but if you leave it at that, then it will certainly look cleaner than it did, but you can still keep on polishing it and it becomes brighter and brighter. And you can tell it's becoming clean because the cotton wool, you look at it and you thought it was clean, but there's still dirt coming out. So don't become complacent and think, okay, enough cleaning, now I can enjoy. Because then the enjoying spirit will feed will water the seed of desire, and then we'll have to get back to doing some deep cleaning again. So urge everyone, please continue to take part in this mission of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and you will not have any regrets. Some of us who have been around for a few years, you look back and you think, I have no regrets except for perhaps I could have done better in my devotional service, but I certainly don't regret sticking around. Some other people might regret we stuck around, but we can't do much about that. Okay, we'll just stop there. Anyone get any questions or comments, please? Yeah, what time's Prasad?
It's just one of the last points you mentioned about don't become complacent and think that you've done enough.
Say that again.
Don't become complacent and think, okay, I've done enough cleaning now. I can enjoy now. Sometimes that mindset can obviously is there. And I think the other day we were in Kirtan. I was here and I was really praying to try and be a servant and do this in the right consciousness. I was really begging, and there was like things coming up in the heart because of purification. And then after a while in my head, I said, okay, I've done enough. I can't, in my head, my mind was telling me, saying to Krishna, give me a break, Mm-hmm. So I was just wondering, how do we? And you sort of feel like that's obviously not the right mentality, but how can we? How can we make sure that we are in those times where there's a clash with your desire to sincerely serve and your own contamination? How can we, kind of bring ourselves back?
So at the same time, we shouldn't beat ourselves up too much. Krishna is also very patient, and we have to learn to be patient with ourselves, because we're maybe not going to become pure devotees overnight. And at the same time, to not become complacent. So we're following different processes, and now you're praying, but then you stop praying to engage in what? Kirtan. So you're going to stop doing one process of devotional service to do something else, another process of devotional service. And to begin with, because Prabhupada says we're conditioned by this work-reward system. So we do a little work and we think, okay, now it's time to stop. So we're very conditioned by that, and that's going to take some time to change and to imbibe the spirit of bhakti, where we put out energy, we say something something, we do something, and we're not expecting anything back in return for it. Just like sometimes if you're a party leader or a department head, or if you have some service where you have to instruct others and they're just not listening to you, then you can get upset. But ultimately, we're doing our duty by giving some instruction. And if someone doesn't follow it, then we don't really have any control over that. But because we're fruitive, we think, I've said this, so now the result is you have to do it. But they might not, because they've got free will. And just like parents are often very disappointed, they get a lot of pleasure from the parenthood, but get a lot of disappointment because they have children thinking that they're going to be able to grow them up in a certain way, but they forget that actually they've got their own mind. Just like your own parents might be thinking, what's my son doing joining the Hare Krishnas? Some of them might be like that, and someone might be thinking, thank God my son joined the Hare Krishnas, glad to get him out of the house. But in any case, they had some idea of what you were going to be, and you're maybe not going to be that, just as their parents may have had some idea what they were going to be. So I guess the thing is that we have to try our best to engage in devotional service, and there's a variety of ways we can engage in devotional service. So we have maybe a certain capacity for praying, and then perhaps we dry up, okay, do some other engagement, chant japa, read something, and perhaps his variety is the spice of life. So we have to keep ourselves interested enough. Also, introspection is good, but too much introspection can disempower us. We can become too self-conscious or self-negating. So we have to do what is favorable and reject what is unfavorable. That's the basis of Krishna consciousness. So if and maybe realize our own limits, that also realizing that, we have a limit. I'm sorry, Lord, I can only play for 30 seconds, then I just get bored. Okay, that's part of self-realization. I've realized I get bored after 30 seconds, that's where I'm at. Just accept it, say sorry. And that's cultivating humility. It's not like, okay, Krishna, I'll give you 30 seconds, then your time's up. I'm off to something else. So we're already in the association of devotees. Even if we're not living up to what we think is the perfect mark, then something else is developing, the awareness that we need to be more dedicated, or that we become a bit humbled by our own shortcomings, etc. But don't focus on the shortcomings too much, otherwise you become morose and you'll be difficult to engage yourself. Anything else? Is that okay? Okay, I think Prasadam is calling. Iskon Guruvinda ki, Shri Prabhupada ki, Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki, Shri Shri Kodanitai Mahaprashashi ki, Lord Premanandi. Gaura Bhaktivinoda ki.